Okay, he's got them. He has got them. The Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, know that they have been rumbled. That is the only explanation behind their truly deranged statement, suggesting that Tom Bower, one of Britain's most respected authors, someone who had a long career of revealing the truth about high-profile figures from Muhammad al-Fayed to Simon Cowell for years before he tackled Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, is somehow a conspiracy theorist for deciding to tell the truth about them. And my God, there are truth bombs in this new book, Betrayal, the follow-up to Revenge, which backs up much of what I have been reporting about not only the strains in Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's relationship, but the completely dire state of their finances and their business. And rather than just ignore Tom Bower, or actually decide to put their money where their mouth is and sue the guy, Meghan and Harry instead ran to their favorite news outlets like GB News and People magazine to release the second in a truly bonkers statement. They said Mr. Bower's commentary has long crossed the line from criticism into fixation. This is someone who has publicly stated the monarchy, in fact, depends on actually obliterating the Sussexes from our state of life, language that speaks for itself. He has made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. Those interested in facts will look elsewhere. Those seeking deranged conspiracy and melodrama know exactly where to find him. But of course, there's nothing deranged and there's nothing conspiratorial about betrayal, power, deceit, and the fight for the future. And that's why we're going to be looking into this book in depth today with Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network. But Brittany, this statement is extraordinary. It reminds me of when Princess Diana herself tried to turn on the book by Andrew Morton, Diana, Her True Story, when in fact she had been working with him. Because there's nothing conspiratorial, there's nothing deranged about this. And Brittany, the use of that word deranged, I think shows that they're the only ones in trouble here.
Oh, definitely so, Dan. And the use of deranged is not an accident because Meghan Markle's Uber fans call anybody who is, let's say, a royalist or a William and Kate fans, sometimes they call them derangers. I'm not even quite sure how they came up with that term. And so it shows you as well as that Meghan is very tuned into her Uber fan base. She is very tuned into the Sussex squad and what they're doing to use that particular term. But the statement overall is completely over the top. It's ridiculous. It's farcical. It actually, to me, actually says that they're scared of Tom Bower. They're scared of what he's going to report because they know it's true. They know there's truth to it. If it's just deranged and crazy and fixation and whatever, then just ignore it. The truth will bear out generally. People will ignore what they seem as or deem as sort of on a crazy end of the spectrum. But that's not what Tom Bower is doing. Tom Bower is being a journalist here and reporting the facts. And the facts terrify Meghan Markle especially. She can't deal with them. She has to live in her delusional fantasy, and she hates anybody who tries to break it. And unfortunately for her, most of the media tries to break it all the time, and she just immensely struggles with that.
Of course, as according to Taz put it, I find this perfect timing right before they go to Australia. I have ordered and will be doing a full review. Just remember, Harry and Meghan threatened to sue at the drop of a hat, and they have never tried to sue Tom Bower because they know what he writes is true. And someone else who hasn't threatened to sue or even issue a denial is the Queen, Camilla, who is quoted in this book as saying that Meghan Markle brainwashed Harry. That was what she told a friend. So let's start getting into the revelations from this explosive new book. And Tom Bower writes, the Cambridges believed that Meghan was not reconciled to what was deemed her destiny in London. This was after joining the royal family. She, they thought, lamented Harry's unlikely chances of one day being king, just as she regretted the possibility that she would never be the queen. With Meghan's encouragement, Harry started to move beyond the palace's control. Instead of the likes of his colourless Uncle Edward, Harry refused any longer to accept his fate as the superfluous spare. William's original fears were soon realised. Meghan had become a divisive agent. To please her, Harry was ignoring his old friends. He even changed his telephone number without telling his family. The jovial lad about town became possessed by seeking revenge. Increasingly, his character mirrored Meghan's. Emotionally, he veered towards extremes. Simple dislikes became passionate hatred. And here's the key quote, Brittany: Camilla told a friend, Meghan's brainwashed Harry. Now, those three words are, of course, damning, Brittany, because other than the king, that is the most senior royal pointing out what we have all known. We are on a mission to 700,000 subscribers, so I need you to do something for me right now. It is free, it is easy, it is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet, and it is the best way to support Outspoken. We're totally independent, by the way, no big tech backing, no billionaires pulling the strings, and if you turn on the bell, you'll get alerted to all our new videos.
We've all seen it, Dan, over the years, how Harry has changed. And yes, I believe this negativity, you could say, and this vindictiveness, there was always an element that was there in Harry's personality, but Meghan just magnified that infinitely. And we've all seen the drastic change, how he's given up every single aspect of his life in order to please her. Going to California was not probably entirely Harry's idea. It was Meghan's idea. Hollywood was Meghan's idea. And Camilla is right. It's something that we've all noticed, that Harry has glommed onto Meghan's personality because despite what he thinks and despite, I'm sure, what Meghan tells him from time to time, Harry's just an incredibly weak-willed man. And he was looking for a mommy figure, and Meghan came over and was able to do that for him. And he gave up everything in order to become what she wanted. And in the process, he's lost everything, and I think has become increasingly miserable over the years. There's bright spots here and there. They do have their children, but I think Harry overall definitely misses his former life, probably has a lot of resentment, and he can't admit yet that most of that resentment should only be aimed at himself. He's the one who's made these decisions, and he's the one who has to live with the consequences.
And of course, Brittany, the whole point of this book is to fast forward to today and talk about the strains in their marriage, especially since Meghan decided to focus almost entirely on her own personal commercial ventures, only using Harry when it suited her. So back to this Tom Bower book, he writes, since then, she has separated herself from Harry, except seemingly when a joint appearance would enrich her publicity. Meghan's self-promotion as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex has become more sophisticated. Entrenched in California, her bid for commercial success relies on her truth, which others would say bears little resemblance to objective facts. No humiliation or criticism has crippled her breathtaking ambition. At the same time, Harry's troubles have mounted, just as you pointed out, Brittany, isolated from Britain. His charitable activities have become threadbare, and his desperation noticeable to many. Permanently alienated from William and Kate. That's key, permanently. Harry was reportedly stunned by his brother's ferocious reaction to revelations about the man now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The unpredicted and unimagined humiliation of Andrew shocked Harry. Rightly, Harry fears that the future King William could remove all the Sussexes' titles and effectively banish him from Britain. Whether Meghan understands the potential consequences of any deliberate aggravation of the Prince and Princess of Wales remains to be seen. And then we get to what really led to the disaster tourism catastrophe of a year ago, Brittany. Remember when these terrible images of Harry and Meghan on a publicity stunt, literally trampling over the bodies of dead people, in fire-ravaged houses when their owners couldn't even return, went all across the globe. And Tom Bower reveals that this was indeed as a direct result of the negative publicity that came from Meghan's ratings at Netflix. And the fact that Netflix had made a joke about Harry and Meghan during this opening event where they said, not since Harry and Meghan has Netflix given more money to someone without a specific plan. And Tom Bower reveals that after that gag, panic gripped the Sussexes' home. Meghan's publicists, since fired of course, suggested that the couple head down to Los Angeles to be seen comforting the victims of the widespread and devastating wildfires. A cameraman from Archwell was waiting for their arrival at a soup kitchen in Pasadena, set up to help a group of homeless people. After recording a video of her listening and hugging victims, the scene was posted that day by publicists to Meghan's 1.6 million Instagram followers. Now, Brittany, we knew that was the case. We knew that this was a publicity stunt. But to get that confirmation from Bower that it was something that the publicist had actually suggested shows just how cynical Meghan is and how prepared she is to use human tragedy to advance herself. Something I think we've seen over the past few days, Brittany, with this terribly ill-judged visit to a Californian children's hospital, which she has no connection to, which she's never raised money for.
Exactly, Dan. Meghan Markle, there is no tragedy that she is not willing to exploit for self-promotion. We have seen this endlessly. It's why people just generally don't like her. Why did she have to go personally to Uvalde, Texas, where she has no connections, to stand in front of a memorial to dead children because, quote unquote, she's a mom? It's insane. And she is 100% a disaster tourist, especially in those California wildfire situations, to go and trample all over the remains of people's lives after a fire is horrific. It was incredibly ill-judged, but it's not a surprise because Meghan Markle's publicists know Meghan. And so they suggested something they thought she might be able to help with. But it's just one of those things where Harry and Meghan, they just didn't need to be there. Just donate some money, leave it at that, because as soon as they got in front of those cameras, as soon as they purposely placed themselves in front of a live studio feed to a local station in Los Angeles, you know, it was entirely a publicity stunt. They could have done something very anonymously. No. They have to be front and center. It has to be about them. They're not part of that community. They didn't lose anything. They're in Montecito. They had no business being there. And it's just another example of how Meghan is so incredibly desperate for publicity, especially positive publicity. She'll trample over anyone to try and achieve it.
Then there is the brand new extract released in the past few hours in the Times newspaper. This is about how Meghan put herself first. And this is where we really get into the current strains in the couple's marriage. But Tom Bower actually starts by rewinding back, Brittany, to 2022. And do you remember this appearance at the One Young World event where Meghan was totally humiliated because she just spoke about herself constantly? And there's an amazing line where Ella Robertson, who is the woman who organized this conference, watched Meghan's speech and groaned, "She's fucked it." Because, of course, nearly 50 times in just 10 minutes, she decided to say I. And then Tom Bower goes into what's going on with Harry at this time. And it's clear that his mental health is suffering. He quotes him as saying, "I've been abandoned," days before the event. And he writes, stressed about their security, Harry had been told that the Home Office refused to provide armed protection in Manchester and London. But with Meghan's insistence that her appearance was essential to sustain her brand, he decided to, quote, risk assassination. So I think that does show you just how paranoid that this guy has become. Then we skip forward to Harry's meeting with the king. And Tom Bower writes, 4 days earlier, a senior Buckingham Palace official was adamant that the king would not meet his son during the trip. But at the last moment, Charles agreed that after flying down from Balmoral for his weekly medical treatment, he would let Harry visit him at Clarence's house. That morning, according to a visitor in Balmoral, the king looked very grey. But first, when I left the MSM and started building Outspoken as an independent outlet, I'll be honest, it was a lot. Suddenly, you're not just the journalist anymore, you're the producer, the scheduler, the marketer, the tech support, the brand manager, and the person trying to make all of it actually work as a business. When you're starting something on your own, it can feel exciting, but also pretty overwhelming. Every day there's a new decision to make, a new task to sort, a new hat to wear. And if you don't have the right systems in place, that to-do list can take over your life. That's why having the right business partner makes all the difference. And for millions of businesses, that partner is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands that are only just getting started. So whether you're launching a new product, building a membership brand, or finally setting up that online store you've been putting off, Shopify gives you what you need to get moving. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. It also helps accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that can write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And when it comes to actually getting the word out, Shopify makes that easier too. You can create email and social media campaigns so you can reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. And best of all, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your £1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.co.uk. Go to shopify.co.uk. That's shopify.co.uk. Tom Bauer then skips forward to that Humanitarian of the Year event in New York, where the marriage tensions between Harry and Meghan exploded on the red carpet. And he writes, some cracks started to appear. Together, Meghan and Harry looked tired. In New York, they seemed to be arguing after Meghan pushed Harry's hand away. There was good reason for the tension. In her latest bid to reposition herself from a fashion plate into a powerful commercial and mature influencer of consequence, Meghan had approached Harper's Bazaar, her trusted promoter, to signal the transition to her new status, or as she would call her make or break bid for commercial success during 2 lengthy interviews, her own next chapter. So, Brittany, lots of interesting revelations there. Harry's anger and the strain on the red carpet came from the fact that Meghan herself was asking for this profile piece, just as we know Meghan herself asked to be featured in the Balenciaga fashion show. Of course, both would prove to be disasters, Brittany. I mean, at Balenciaga, we had the drive through the Diana Death Tunnel or next to the Diana Death Tunnel. And in the Harper's Bazaar interview, we had that ludicrous scene of Meghan being introduced as the Duchess of Sussex in an empty house. But it's very clear that that bid for publicity is why Harry was so angry with his wife on the red carpet and just couldn't hide it.
Yes, Dan, the strains on their relationship is just really, really hard to ignore. They want to go in very different directions, and you constantly have the strain and push and pull between them because I do think Harry wants to do, let's say, more charitable things. He really wants this pseudo royal role back. That's why he's doing all these cosplay royal events and these sorts of things. And Meghan's more interested overall in the publicity. That's what she's after. And so when it comes to this Balenciaga show and everything, her walking down and coming in that entrance was just ridiculous. The whole Harper's Bazaar piece was ridiculous as well. And it comes from the fact that Meghan is obviously incredibly desperate. What we get from these Tom Bower pieces is that people aren't calling her. She's going around begging for things to do. Nobody's calling her. Nobody's interested. Nobody is super excited about having such a toxic personality as Meghan Markle at their event connected with their brand. And so she's constantly going around trying to find people who will help her achieve a level of publicity. And it's just not working. And I imagine that's some of the strain as well. Harry wants to go in one direction. Meghan wants to go in a different direction. Her direction's not working. His direction's not working. And they're not bringing in the millions upon millions of dollars that they were both hoping to make. And that's going to cause strain and tension. And I think just Harry probably is not really interested all that much in the influencer life. I mean, he is a little bit, but not super much. And they're just a mess. The two of them are just an absolute train wreck together. And nothing is working. That's just become incredibly clear over the years. Nothing is working. Nothing they're doing is particularly groundbreaking or innovative or actually resulting in an impact. They're just two middling celebrities with royal titles who don't really have talent between them to do it in that industry.
Totally. And of course, as a result, the stunts are getting more and more desperate, Brittany. Now, I'm just back I just went for 5 nights, actually, 5 nights to Auckland in New Zealand to be with the ladies in my life, my mom, my sister, and their little Ivy, Dan, my niece, who is my namesake. Had the most incredible time. But Brittany, while I was there, all anyone was talking about was this trip to Australia that Meghan Markle is making, where she's charging thousands and thousands of dollars for Aussies to meet her. And you are equally stunned by this, Brittany. And I know you will have discussed it last week, but given I've been off, I just was really taken by your post on X, where you wrote, this whole Her Best Life retreat is simply bizarre. Meghan Markle, the so-called Duchess, was apparently begging to be part of this woman's retreat weekend. Why would a royal need to beg to be part of something as insane as this nothing podcast and retreat? It's even more perplexing when Gemma, now that's the Australian host, explains it. She says that it was Marcus Anderson that made this connection weird and made this possible, but they're obviously just work friends, and it still doesn't explain why Meghan offered herself to this event. She should have people begging at her feet to be their guest speaker in an event, but that's obviously not the case. This may be the first step in Meghan going down the Fergie path and advertising she's willing to go any and everywhere if you can pay. It seems like all the other revenue streams are really beginning to collapse for them, and Harry and Meghan are becoming desperate, which was always the risk for the monarchy. They are ever more quickly morphing into the next Andrew and Sarah. And I actually went and listened to this podcast announcement from this Australian DJ, and it was completely bizarre, Brittany. I just clipped together some of the key points. Watch this.
At home here in the lounge room, and Marcus messages me telling me that he's at Meghan's house and that he was talking about me. He's always said that we would get along really well, and he's always wanted us to try and connect over the years, but it's just obviously never happened. And he just happened to say to me, look, I just wanted to say if Meghan was ever going to come to Australia, I'd love you guys to try and connect, and I'd love you guys to try and do something for your community, because Marcus is a big supporter of what we've been trying to build with this community. And in fact,
The reaction to this latest royal book may have become just as controversial as the book itself. Before many people had even finished reading the first chapters, the response from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's representatives had already become a major story. Instead of simply dismissing the publication, they issued a sharply worded statement criticizing the author and arguing that his work had gone far beyond legitimate criticism. They accused him of building elaborate narratives and encouraged readers looking for factual information to look elsewhere. But that response has only fueled more discussion. Many royal commentators have argued that if the book truly contained nothing but baseless speculation, ignoring it might have been the more effective strategy. Instead, they believe the unusually strong response has encouraged more people to ask what exactly the book contains and why it prompted such an immediate reaction. The book itself makes a series of claims about Harry and Meghan's relationship, their business ambitions, their standing within the royal family, and the challenges they have allegedly faced behind the scenes. Whether readers accept those claims depends on how convincing they find the author's reporting and sourcing, but there is no question that the publication has become one of the biggest talking points in royal coverage. Supporters of the author point to his long history of writing investigative biographies about high-profile public figures. They argue that he has spent years examining powerful individuals and that his reputation has been built on extensive research. Critics, however, argue that controversial biographies often rely on anonymous sources and interpretations that should be approached carefully. That disagreement forms the backdrop for almost every discussion surrounding the book. One of the most widely discussed sections involves the reported reaction of senior members of the royal family during Harry and Meghan's time as working royals. According to the book, there were concerns that Meghan struggled to accept the realities of Harry's position within the monarchy. The author argues that some family members believed she had expected a much larger role and found it difficult to reconcile herself with the limits that came with Harry being further down the line of succession. The book goes on to argue that Harry gradually became more isolated from people who had once formed the core of his life. According to the author's account, long-time friendships weakened, relationships within the family deteriorated, and Harry increasingly viewed events through a very different lens than he had before his marriage. One of the strongest claims discussed by commentators reviewing the book involves an alleged private remark attributed to Queen Camilla. According to the author, she reportedly told a friend that Meghan had brainwashed Harry. That claim has generated enormous attention, but it is important to remember that it is presented in the book as a reported private conversation rather than a publicly confirmed statement. Even so, many commentators have seized upon it because they believe it reflects concerns they think have existed inside royal circles for years. Those same commentators argue that Harry appears dramatically different from the person many members of the public believed they knew before his marriage. They suggest that his outlook has become increasingly focused on conflict, grievances, and public disagreements with his family. Others reject that interpretation entirely, arguing that Harry has simply become more willing to speak openly about issues he previously kept private. Another central theme running throughout the book is the suggestion that Harry and Meghan are no longer moving in exactly the same direction professionally. According to the author, Meghan has increasingly concentrated on building her own commercial identity, while Harry has struggled to establish a role outside the institution he left behind. The book argues that Meghan has pursued branding opportunities, media appearances, and business ventures with determination despite criticism. Supporters would likely describe that persistence as resilience. Critics interpret it differently, arguing that many of those efforts have failed to produce the level of success originally expected when the couple stepped back from royal duties. The author also suggests that Harry has found the transition significantly more difficult. According to this interpretation, he remains deeply connected to the charitable work that once defined much of his public role, but has found it challenging to recreate that same sense of purpose independently. This difference in priorities has become one of the biggest talking points among royal commentators discussing the book. Some believe Harry would prefer to focus primarily on charitable initiatives, veterans' causes, and humanitarian work. Others argue that Meghan has focused more heavily on commercial opportunities, public visibility, and expanding her personal brand. Whether that accurately reflects their private lives is impossible to verify from the outside, but it is one of the key arguments advanced throughout the publication.